r/NoSleep. When the forests began to whisper, we sent researchers to uncover the mystery. They should have burned the tapes instead. I'm not sure why I'm writing this. Maybe it's guilt, maybe it's a feeble attempt at redemption, or maybe it's because I've lost everything else, and this is all I have left. If this reaches anyone, know that I tried to stop it. I tried to warn them. But when you're standing on the tracks of an oncoming train, screaming doesn't stop the inevitable. It began 5 years ago in the Blackwood Forest, a dense expanse of untouched wilderness nestled deep in the Appalachian Mountains. Locals always had stories about the place, about people vanishing without a trace, about strange lights, and most notably, about the whispers. Everyone chalked it up to superstition. A mix of wind, wildlife, and folklore. That changed when campers started reporting the whispers in terrifying detail. They weren't vague or faint. People described hearing their own voices repeated back to them, calling their names, or pleading in languages they didn't understand. The descriptions were disturbingly consistent, as though everyone was hearing the same things. The government couldn't ignore it any longer when search and rescue teams sent into Blackwood started disappearing. Their radios broadcasted garbled transmissions, disjointed phrases, chilling screams, and something that sounded like static mixed with laughter. Some teams came back, but they were wrong. Catatonic, their eyes glazed, their lips forming words too faint to hear. None survived more than a few days after returning. A research team was assembled under Project Echo, comprised of linguists, physicists, psychologists, and biologists. They set up a base camp near the forest's edge. Their mission was to investigate the phenomenon and determine if there was a scientific explanation. The public was told nothing. Officially, it was a wildlife conservation study. At first, the team observed typical forest sounds, wind, rustling leaves, distant animal calls. But at night, the whispers began. Recordings picked up faint voices, layers of them, overlapping like a choir of the damned. The voices grew louder as the team ventured deeper into the forest. It wasn't just random noise anymore. The whispers carried meaning. Words. Sentences. And worse, they knew things, secrets about the researchers, about their pasts, their fears, their regrets. Dr. Harris, the project lead, dismissed it as a psychological phenomenon. Auditory pareidolia, he called it. The human brain finding patterns in random sounds. But then the recordings started playing back things they hadn't heard live, conversations they'd had in private, moments of silence where the tape would play their own voices screaming. On the fifth night, one of the linguists, Dr. Patel, vanished. Her tent was empty, but her voice filled the air around the camp, repeating, "Help me, please," over and over. The team followed the sound, but every time they thought they were close, it shifted, pulling them deeper into the woods. They found her the next morning, or what was left of her. Her body was slumped against a tree, her face frozen in terror. Her eyes were missing, and in their place, her sockets seemed to radiate darkness, an abyss that swallowed the sunlight. Worst of all, her voice still echoed through the forest, pleading for help. The team voted to leave, but Harris insisted on staying, convinced this was the breakthrough of the century. By now, their equipment began to fail, batteries drained inexplicably, cameras captured only static, and GPS devices spun in circles. Yet the tapes kept working. Always recording, always playing back horrors none of them remembered experiencing. 2 days later, the whispers became screams. One by one, the researchers succumbed. It was as though the forest itself had taken them, hollowing them out and leaving only their voices behind. When their bodies were found, they were unrecognizable, contorted, twisted into grotesque parodies of their former selves, yet still emitting those haunting cries. I was one of the last to leave. By then, there were only 3 of us left, dragging the remaining tapes and whatever gear still functioned back to the vehicles. But the whispers followed us, growing louder, angrier. We didn't look back. The tapes were confiscated immediately upon our return. A team from Homeland Security took them, but not before I copied some of the recordings. I don't know why. Maybe I thought I could prove what happened. Maybe I thought someone would believe me. Instead, the recordings haunted me. The voices started playing even when the tapes weren't in the recorder. They spoke my name. My darkest fears. They promised I would return to Blackwood. And then, they escaped. The whispers have spread. It started small, isolated reports from hikers and campers, then entire towns hearing the voices. People are vanishing, leaving behind nothing but faint echoes of their cries. Governments are scrambling, but they can't contain it. The whispers are everywhere now, on the wind, in the static of a radio, even in the silence of an empty room. I hear them all the time. They tell me things I can't bear to repeat. I know I don't have long. I see the shadows shifting in the corners of my vision, feel the pull of the forest even in my dreams. If you're reading this, stay away from the whispers. Burn anything that carries them, tapes, recordings, even memories. But it won't matter. They're already here, and soon, we'll all be nothing but voices in the dark. Goodbye. Listen closely, and you might hear me among them. But I wasn't ready to be one of them yet. Not yet. The whispers had taken everything from me, my friends, my career, my sanity. But if there was one thing left to cling to, it was the faint hope that the whispers could be silenced. A foolish notion, I know. Even now, as I sit here surrounded by darkness, they taunt me. They tell me that I belong to them, that I always have, that my resistance only makes them stronger. But there's something they don't know. Something I didn't dare believe myself until now. A week after my escape from Blackwood, I began to notice strange things happening to me. At first, it was subtle. I'd hear my name called from the shadows or catch glimpses of movement in mirrors that didn't align with reality. Then it became worse. My reflection would lag behind, staring at me when I moved away, its lips forming silent words I couldn't hear. I started avoiding mirrors altogether. The dreams followed soon after. In every one, I was back in the forest, running, always running, but never escaping. The trees would close in, their bark etched with screaming faces. The ground beneath me would shift, turning into a mass of writhing, shadowy figures clawing at my legs, dragging me deeper into the earth. When I woke, the whispers would still be there, faint but unrelenting, echoing the nightmares in perfect detail. Then came the worst part, the realization that the whispers weren't just following me. They were inside me. It started with faint echoes of my own thoughts. At first, I mistook them for the normal inner voice everyone has, but soon, they grew louder, independent, and cruel. They mocked me, replaying my worst moments, twisting my memories into grotesque parodies. They showed me visions of Blackwood, of the people I'd abandoned, their hollowed-out bodies reaching for me, accusing me, blaming me. I tried to fight back. I sought out priests, scientists, even self-proclaimed psychics. No one could help. The whispers fed on their fear, growing louder, more vindictive. The people who tried to help me began to suffer as well, first with nightmares, then with hallucinations, and finally with whispers of their own. I stopped seeking help when one of them, a psychiatrist, threw herself out of her office window moments after our session ended. Her last words echoed in my ears, "They told me what you've done. You can't escape it." 3 months ago, I decided to go back to Blackwood. I couldn't take the whispers anymore. If they wanted me, they could have me, but I wouldn't let them hurt anyone else. I packed what little I had left, a flashlight, a notebook, a voice recorder, and drove through the night. The closer I got, the louder the whispers became, until they drowned out the engine, the wind, even my own thoughts. When I arrived at the forest's edge, I found something I hadn't expected: people. Dozens of them, maybe more, standing silently at the tree line. Their eyes were empty, their faces slack, as though they were sleepwalking. I recognized some of them, locals from nearby towns, hikers who had disappeared, even members of the original research team. They didn't react to my presence, didn't even seem to notice me. They just stood there, facing the forest, waiting. The whispers were deafening now, a cacophony of voices overlapping, each one more desperate than the last. "Come back," they said. "Join us. Finish what you started." My hands shook as I stepped past the silent crowd and into the woods. Blackwood had changed since I'd last been there. The trees were darker, their bark glistening like obsidian. The ground was soft, pulsing faintly underfoot, as though the forest itself was alive. The air was thick and heavy, filled with a low hum that vibrated through my bones. The whispers were everywhere, but now they were clearer, more coherent. They spoke in unison, a single voice made up of thousands. "You cannot run. You cannot hide. You are ours." I didn't know where I was going, only that I was being drawn deeper into the forest. The path twisted and turned, leading me to places I didn't recognize but somehow felt familiar. Finally, I reached a clearing, and at its center stood something that made my blood run cold. It was a monolith, towering in black, its surface rippling like liquid shadow. The whispers emanated from it, pulsating in time with its movements. As I approached, I saw faces in the darkness, faces of the people who had been taken. Their mouths moved in silent screams, their eyes filled with despair. The monolith wasn't just a source of the whispers. It was a prison. I don't know what compelled me to touch it. Maybe it was curiosity, or maybe it was the whispers, guiding me to my doom. The moment my hand made contact, a surge of energy coursed through me, and suddenly, I was no longer in the forest. I was everywhere. I saw the origins of the whispers, a force older than time, spreading across the universe like a virus. It consumed everything it touched, leaving nothing but emptiness in its wake. I saw entire worlds swallowed by shadow, civilizations reduced to echoes. And I saw Earth's future, a planet covered in darkness, its people trapped in eternal torment, their voices joining the endless chorus. But I also saw something else. A glimmer of hope, buried deep within the monolith. A fragment of light, a remnant of what the whispers had once been before they were corrupted. It was faint, fragile, but it was there. And it was calling to me. When I woke, I was lying in the clearing, the monolith still towering above me. The crowd from the forest's edge had followed me, surrounding the clearing in silent vigil. The whispers were quieter now, almost fearful. I don't know how I did it, but I think I've weakened them. The light I saw, it's inside me now, a part of me. The whispers still linger, but they're no longer in control. For the first time in years, I feel like myself again. But I know this is only the beginning. The whispers won't stop until they've consumed everything. I can't destroy them, but I can contain them. The monolith is the key. I have to go back, to finish what I started. If you're reading this, it means I didn't make it. But don't come looking for me. Don't come to Blackwood. Let the forest have me, and pray it doesn't take you too. Goodbye, and may the light protect you.